3.0 though. Now, there's another question about ExpressLRS 3.0. People are asking about the flight modes in ExpressLRS 3.0. There's a whole bunch of new packet rates in ELRS 3.0. Let's go through those real quick, okay? Any packet rate that has an F in it is FLRC, which is fast modulation and lower latency, but shorter range. This is the same modulation that's used by Tracer, and it's the same modulation that is used by some of the Ghost link modes. Okay. So FLRC is fast modulation, lower latency, and shorter range. And it comes in 500 hertz and 1000 hertz flavors. So the only reason to use FLRC, or F modulation, in other words, like F500 and F1000, is if you want the lowest possible latency and are willing to tolerate some range loss as a result. In other words, racers might do this. Okay? The D modes. D, they're calling it deja vu. Basically, what the D modes do is they use FLRC, but instead of sending 500 hertz or 1000 hertz packets, they retransmit packets. So the D modes always run at 1000 hertz, but instead of sending 1000 packets per second, they send 4 packets per second. 4 of the same packet, they retransmit it, giving you an effective 250 hertz packet rate, but because they're retransmitting the packets 4 times, it means that it is much less likely that you will get lost packets. In other words, it keeps your LQ perfect. And it doesn't just, it bounces the frequency around as it retransmits the packet. So if there's a little bit of interference on this frequency, it'll retransmit the packet here, 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 and here. And one of those is likely to get through. So the deja vu modes, which come in 250 and 500 hertz, they're for people who want the highest LQ with extremely low jitter, no drop packets whatsoever. Okay? Again, this is using FLRC, so you will have reduced range compared to the other modes. All right? There are 2 modes that give full resolution aux channels running at 100 hertz and 333 hertz. These are the full modes. The purpose of these modes is for people who want to run servos with full 10-bit resolution, or just people who are lazy and don't want to think about the thing is, in ExpressLRS 2.0, they gave you the wide aux channel mode, which gives you 128 positions per aux channel, which is more than almost anybody would need unless you're really just running control surface servos. So for aux modes, you probably don't need this. You probably just can use wide aux channels. But if you want full 10-bit servos, you would use one of the full resolution modes. Okay? And that's about it. Then you've got and then there are the normal modes, which use LoRa or long range, the LoRa technology, and they're going to give you the maximum range and not quite as good a latency as the FLRC modes. So that is an overview of the new modes, the new flight modes in ELRS 3.0. The difference in range, you have to think about that difference in range and whether it matters. Cohiba Matt asks, when you say reduced range, is it also reduced penetration? Yes. I want everybody in FPV, everybody in RC needs to understand that range and penetration are almost always the same thing. Think of range as penetration through the air, okay? So anything that reduces your range in clear space will probably also reduce your penetration through obstacles. Okay? Now, there are some exceptions to that. That is not universally true. And if somebody wanted to argue with me, they could think of one or two edge cases where range and penetration are, where a given thing affects penetration but not range. For example, in the 2.4 gigahertz band, 2.4 gigahertz signals are very close to, I think it's a resonant frequency of the water molecules. And that's why microwave ovens use 2.4 gigahertz signals. They use 2.4 gigahertz frequency to heat the water in your food and heat up your food. So 2.4 gigahertz signals are especially absorbed when penetrating through water. So if you had thick foliage, tree leaves with water in the leaves, that can absorb a 2.4 gigahertz signal way more proportionally than if you were just going through the air, which doesn't have a lot of water in it. Okay. So there are some situations where range and penetration, and he said, well, I'm going to go to 900 megahertz. 900 megahertz is going to have somewhat more penetration through the air than 2.4 gigahertz. But it's going to have way more penetration through moisture and water than 2.4 gigahertz. So that's an example of a case where penetration and range are not proportional to each other between those two frequencies. Most of the time, though, when we're talking about these modulations in ExpressLRS, when I say that this modulation gives you less range, it also gives you less penetration. They're the same thing. Okay? Okay. What's the dBm in this script for LoRa versus FLRC modes? Well, I don't have it handy. I think it's a difference of about 12, 13 dB between 50 hertz LoRa and 1000 hertz FLRC. So I think it's about 1/4 the range. That's the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb that I have is that the fastest ExpressLRS mode, 1000 hertz FLRC, has roughly 1/4 the range of the slowest ExpressLRS mode, 50 hertz LoRa. Okay.